Welcome to Life in Cyber Book Club. Today we are going to talk about what got you here won't get you there.
Let's fucking do it.
Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but I kind of thought this entire book was preachy.
This book, What Got You Here
That
Won't Get
book
You There, by Marshall Goldsmith.
Yeah.
What do you mean by preachy? That's an interesting description.
Some things kind of seemed common sense to me. Other things, I felt like, look at me. Look at all of these people that I'm mentoring, and look at how great they are, and that by proxy makes me great.
Well, let's start with something positive, I guess. Like, you're right, that is a good criticism. But I want to say this book is interesting because the entire concept is don't rest on your laurels, so to speak, right? Like, that's kind of the message here. And it's like, here's some bad habits that successful people tend to have that end up like getting them in their own way. And I thought that was useful. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Shannon, like to add to the criticism, it's like the way that this book delivers that message, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way to the point that I didn't even finish it. Like, I'm probably not going to. I think I got what I wanted out of this book, and then I'm going to move on. And it really does come down to like the delivery. The concept is great. The delivery is miserable.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I was looking at is like I just skip straight to the habits, right? And kind of read a little bit about the habits. But the way that the book was written, to be honest, I was put off by the book on page 18, and as Shannon was putting it off of, that's not even the beginning of the book yet. That's still the introduction of the book.
It's the foreword. Yeah.
It is, but I pushed through a little bit. I got about halfway through the book, but really, it's the work behaviors that I was looking at that seemed to be the most important message out of this book. And I do agree with pretty much all the habits that they were talking about. It's just don't flaunt your apparent superiority. So I can't say the word. Superiority. Thank you. Even though that's what he was doing the whole freaking time.
Yeah, I think the part that really like ruined it for me was when he was like, I mean, he was talking about, mentoring executives the whole way. So we know he's talking about hot shots for the most part. But it was when he started talking about the salary of one of them where it was like, yeah, this guy is clearly successful. He makes 4 million a year and he's paying me to help him. And I'm like, okay, good for you. And then he just had a story like that over and over and over and over again. And it just completely ruined any chance that this guy had at being relatable.
Felt like he was kind of stuck on repeat with the stories. Like every single one, he's like, this one had the bad habit of X, but he made $4 million a year. And I helped him.
Yeah, I kind of feel like 20 habits is a lot, isn't it? 21 habits?
There are a lot of bad habits, and they hit people in different ways.
Right. But then when you're like trying to talk about each one sequentially and then having a story about a different executive every single time, like that's part of what makes it kind of drag on, I think. Like chapter 4 for me was so slow because it was like, here's this habit and here's a story. Here's this habit and here's a story. And it was really formulaic and it kind of dragged for me.
I think he was trying to make it relatable, but
only relatable to a very small population.
And this book, I think, is kind of made for people who aspire to be CEOs. So for me, it's way beyond what I aspire to be. And I think it's kind of marketed towards executives that are in that C-suite level already.
Yeah, so and I think that was one of the biggest problems I had with the book, is I think I put the bar too high. I was expecting it to be something completely different than what it was. Right? Like what you were just saying, like it was written for CEOs, but I'm not going to be a CEO. I don't aspire to be a CEO. It is not for the everyday getter, which is kind of funny because, I just left a job that was, head of engineering at Dish. I was like, oh, let me toot my own horn, right? But at the same time, it's like, I don't see that this book was to be like, oh, this would get you to the next step. Like I didn't feel like that was really something I would read out of this book.
And I think they leave that step I think they purposely leave that step blank. That way they can draw on more people to read the book. They're like, we're not going to tell you what the step is, but we're going to help you get to it.
Now,
Yeah.
I think the message itself can apply to anyone, right?
Mhm.
Especially people who are at, I guess, like intermediate stages of their career where they kind of need that little nudge to kind of push themselves a little further, right? I think everyone in their career like has a start and then they kind of have a stalling point. And then the question is, how long is that stall? And sometimes like it really comes down to like how introspective you can be about like improving yourself during that moment. And I think this book could have been that. And that's what I thought it was going to be when we chose to read it. And I was disappointed because it wasn't. Like the message here very much can be
Mhm.
that and still could be. It's just the delivery that takes away from that.
And the steps are good. For someone like me who I'm reflecting on my flaws and trying to become a better person, the steps are valid. I'm not going to degrade those in any way. They definitely will help you if you go through and you read the 21 habits. Outside of that, I don't think you need anything from the stories to get any value. I think you could do fine just reading the 21 habits and then putting the book on the shelf and going back and referencing those habits whenever you need to and reflect.
So which habits did you all relate with the most? Maybe three of them, one or two?
Ones that really stick out to me, and I didn't really realize it until I read the chapter, and then I was like, well, that's dumb. I don't really see that as a problem. And then the very next day, I caught myself doing the damn thing that I thought I didn't have an issue with, and it was winning too much.
Mhm.
I catch myself needing to be right constantly, and I didn't even know that was a problem until I was actively doing it the very next day in the middle of an argument over something.
You're wrong. I'm right.
We've talked about how competitive you can be. Usually
And
it's funny.
I don't even realize it.
Yeah.
That's how ingrained it is in me. I don't even really realize it. It takes something like this to make me look back and be like, damn it. Kind of like my trash being full.
Yeah, it's still full, probably. Yeah. I've had a few things in here that okay, thank you for that. Let it be known the trash can is not full today.
And Shannon had to
Um,
prove it.
Not that I
well,
needed to win that or anything.
there's a few of them in here that it depends on the situation, right? Like when I did have a ton of direct reports and stuff like that, giving one of them was failing to give proper recognition. That was definitely something that I had a really hard time doing. It goes two ways. So there's two of them in there. There's that one, giving recognition and claiming credit that we don't deserve. Because there's a lot of times where someone would come by and be like, "Hey, JT, great job," and I'm like, "It wasn't me, it was the team." But do I still put my name in that bucket, saying, "Yay, JT wins," right? But at the same time, reading through this was definitely something that helped me decide, like, hey, that is really a form of disrespect, right? If like being able to say, yeah, not only are you doing a good job, but I'm going to recognize you doing a good job, even if it is the same thing we do every day, right?
I think the failing to give proper recognition is a hard one for me. And I've done a lot of inward looking on that one because it's one that I've been aware of for a long time that I've been working on. And it's really, quite frankly, it comes down to like I just grew up in a house that doesn't celebrate, right? And so how do I help others celebrate their moments when I don't know how to celebrate myself? So I don't really need or want recognition most of the time. And then I find myself getting it every once in a while. I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool. That's kind of nice. And then I take that as my reminder, like, hey, when have you recognized your staff, your people? I've been doing a lot better on it lately, but I definitely struggled with that in the past. And it's a really important one. If you don't do it well, your people tend to kind of like their morale will drop very quickly every time they do something good.
I have a question for each one of you. So each one of you have a degree of some sort, if not multiple degrees. Did any of you walk when you graduated?
I did.
You did? Okay. I
I,
never
I
walked. Mr. Hotshot, you didn't walk either?
Do we include high school? Because I
no,
was made.
No, high school is you're forced to. So that's a
no.
different story.
No, mainly because it was an online school. I think if there was a local presence to the college that we went to, I might have walked. I would have done it for my parents. Would I have done it for me? No.
Well, I went to an online school as well, but they offered, ceremonies everywhere. I just decided not to.
I'm
Right.
not.
And so I was just kind of wondering there if like the reason why I'm asking is, how do you give yourself recognition? Like what Kenny was just saying.
Yeah, I didn't do it for me. I actually I walked for my family because they were proud of me, but I wasn't proud of myself going through it. I thought, and this is going to sound really arrogant, but I thought college was easy. I didn't really try. I just kind of barreled through it. I was kind of an idiot through most of it, and some reason it worked out. And so I didn't feel like I should have been proud of it because I didn't put my best foot forward to make it happen. I actually had my degree and all of my certifications in a drawer, like just hiding in a closet somewhere for probably like 10 years. It took me a long time to actually like pull them out and be proud of my accomplishments.
Hey, you got me doing that now, Kenny. Thank you. What was
Um,
another one for you there, Shannon?
I don't want to admit it because it's something that everyone has harped on me on my entire life is negativity. Negativity. And I don't know why I am this way. I just tend to be a negative person. I sometimes like to think it's because of the career that I'm in. I like to think, expect the worst but hope for the best. That's always kind of been my mentality, and it rubs off and it makes me seem really negative to everyone that is around me, and it is completely toxic.
Yeah, and I think the way the book was written it is that let me explain why that won't work. Right? If you've ever started your conversation like that, I think all of us have at least once in our life, right? If not
I
multiple.
struggled with that with my staff more than anything. Whenever I'm with, and I discovered this when I want to say a few years ago, when I was just getting into leadership as a concept. When people brought forward ideas and I already had thought about it or already like was working on something that was like several stages past it, because I didn't really necessarily communicate with my team what I was working on. I just did stuff. Whenever they brought an idea forward, I would explain to them really quickly, like why that idea won't work and what I have in motion. And I didn't realize until years later, like how demoralizing that makes them feel, right? Like, but I got past that stage, and I'll be honest, like some of it came with like I'm naturally kind of a brainstormer, but it actually came from when I went to a Google Cloud conference and they were just talking about the yes and mentality for like innovative thinking, and I just started applying that to whenever somebody brought an idea to me. So like even if it was something I'd already thought about and already worked on, I would just tell them fantastic idea and let's make it even better, and then I would tell them some of the other things that I had put some thought into, and then I would just let them do it instead of me taking it on, right? I got better at delegating too because of it. So there's ways that you can work on that in multiple different, I guess, contexts. But for me, the biggest flaw was doing that to my own students.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I think you could take away from the 20 habits in this book, right? And I think that's something that we all can agree on that the book itself is a great idea about, hey, what habits are there? What habits do we all find prone to? I think most of us, I probably could say I've fallen prone to all 20, probably, pretty easily. But at the same time, it's like, would I recommend the book?
I'd
Pick it up in
recommend the
Barnes and
21
Noble, look at
Habits.
page 44, and call it good.
Yeah. I, I I have given out the link to people. I said these are the habits. Look at those. Don't don't really read the stories.
So I only made it halfway through the book. I hate giving ratings to a book that I only read halfway, just because I just couldn't make it through it. But that is something to say. If I had to give this book a rating, probably a 3.5 out of 10.
I was going to go on a out of five scale, and I was going to give it a 2 or a 3 out of 5. Again, strong message. absolute awful delivery, so maybe a 2 out of 5. But if it were out of 10, it'd probably be a 3 out of 10. I'm trying to avoid the decimals or the halves. And it's just because it's awful to read, but the message is good. Like if you just take page 40 and 41 out of this book and turn that into a flyer, you're good.
What would you read it there,
Exactly.
Shannon?
I'd give it a 5 or 6.
The highest
But-
score is a 5.
I went
Or
into
6.
it looking for something.
I think I just went in with expectations, and maybe that's why I was so disappointed, if I'm to be honest. Like, because our book last month was so good that I was like, yeah, this one's going to be great too. And then it was like, So I might be coming in with kind of a biased start. But I don't know. I'm going to stick with my rating nonetheless.
We'll see what my rating is when I read a book that's not self-help.
I think a lot of our books are going to end up being self-help. Speaking of, our book for next month, I think Josh was picking it, and he's not here to show it off. Do any of you remember what it was?
Yeah, the book for next month is The Courage to be Disliked.
Yeah. There you go.
Hopefully it has a better audiobook, because the audiobook on this last one sucked.
Oh, yeah, it was miserable. Although Josh did recommend the audiobook for this next one. So we'll see you all next month for The Courage to be Disliked. And we'll have people here. It's going to be great.